They're pretty well versed in what goes on here, but nonetheless, in case of a fire or other evacuation notices, use the doors on the east side of the room. Do not use the elevator or the doors behind the dais, but take the steps at the front or rear of the building to descend one level to the outside doors. We respectfully request that you don't move the furniture. When speaking at the podium, please state your name and address before your comments. The board has received the project application in advance of tonight's meeting and has had adequate time to review the materials. The meeting will proceed as follows. The petitioner will present the agenda to the board. The board will ask questions to discuss with the petitioner. The board will deliberate and make its recommendations. The chair reserves the right to pause, stop, or stop the meeting at any point due to technical issues or disruptive behavior. Rachel, are you ready to do a roll call?
Yes, I am. Duncan Black.
Aye.
Marissa Colucci.
Hello.
Tracy Konheiser-Uwe.
Here.
Dale Giuliani.
Here.
Pete Talty.
Okay, first item on the agenda tonight is design review for site plan SP 2310, proposed I'm having an awful time today. Proposed apartment building property located at 3945 Rice Road.
Hi, Pat Sheedy from Carmino Design, the project engineer. We're proposing one multifamily building, a 3-story, 12-unit building. On the site, there's currently an old abandoned, I think, single-family residential home that will be demolished as part of the site. The site is bound by the existing hotel and commercial development to the south and multifamily residential development to the west. Really no other site features on proposed here. If Dave wants to give an overview of the building itself.
Okay.
If you could advance it, correct. So I have reviewed the comments that were provided for this project. This board has seen this project in the past regarding the architectural components. There were several items that were discussed, one of which was a recommendation to talk about maybe enhancing the predominance of the front door entrance and create a covering. So we had a minimal covering there. The rendering doesn't show it, but the elevations show it. We've taken the overhang at the front door, extended it out 3 feet, introduced some decorative brackets to highlight the entrance and protect the front entrance for a more predominant entry or acknowledgement of the entry. And that was comment number 1 on the, or B2A, I guess, was the item that was being addressed with that modification. There was also some items regarding like some introduction of more detail where the stone was. So we did introduce some precast sills at the windows because of the window articulation in the drawings and the rendering seemed to be lacking in some of the architectural framework around those 2 windows in the middle section, and we are introducing precast sills at each one of those to give it a more architecturally correct feature. One of the other items was talking about putting some energy savings or energy contributing features to the property. What I can state, there is no actual geothermal or solar, but we are doing every effort in terms of energy efficiency, LED lighting, and all other energy related Energy Star appliances. So we are doing everything we can to conserve energy in a fashion that is above and beyond the standards that are set by New York State. But we are looking to do more of an Energy Star program for this building to be more user friendly in terms of its carbon footprint and for energy consumption. I have the samples, and you may have seen them. We do have samples of the siding, of the brick. Well, there's no brick on this one, but on the stone, and we do have samples of those. I can distribute those, have you take a look at them. I think you saw the siding last time. The actual rendering that's in color is our color scheme that we are proposing. And the brick is the small section in the middle, and the 2 different kinds of siding to break it up, break up the composition and the massing of the building, using some white trim around the windows for accents. And once again, the only thing this rendering does not show, based on some comments, is the stone sill at the stone middle section and the added extension for the covered entry with the decorative brackets. So that's, I believe, all the items that were commented on for the architectural portion of this project, and would glad to answer any questions I might have overlooked or that need some further clarification for the architectural part.
Do you guys want to see the samples of the, I know we looked at them before, do you want to see them again?
Is the red that red?
Are we asking that question for a reason?
Just curious.
So the
I
red,
wasn't at the preliminary one, that's why I'm
Yeah.
That's right,
kinda
yeah.
curious.
Right,
the
right.
red is more of a brick red. In that rendering, it's actually showing up a little more vibrant red.
Okay.
So I believe the red is a more of a brick red, which you're probably going to be more in favor of. So I apologize. Every time that rendering goes up on a screen, it seems to take on a different red. That's why I think it's important that we bring these samples for you.
Step up here.
I can see, yeah, that's,
Is that what's hard to see?
yeah, that's a lot, that, what's on the screen,
It's
so,
a huge difference.
yeah,
Yeah. Better quality red.
Yeah, right.
yeah,
So I apologize based on the
that's great.
transfer. When we look at it on our screen, it's this.
I get it, yeah.
All right, Mr. Black, do you have any questions?
I have a couple of them. One, I believe, sorry, yeah. Are
Duncan, can you turn on your mic
It is.
It's on.
or pull it closer? Can't hear you. Thank
Okay, I just, one of the questions I have relates, I think, are you asking for a zoning variance relative to the height of the first floor? I
Oh.
think there was a request for it to be 2 feet.
Yeah. So there's, I believe the zoning ordinance is suggestive to be raising that first floor level up. And we will be asking for a variance for that. The complication is that we have to provide handicap accessibility. And obviously, you can see the challenges when you're raising things up. We don't want to be introducing ramps or anything. So we're asking to put that actual first floor level at or close to grade from a handicap accessibility standpoint. And we understand the value of the criteria for the zoning, but we feel in this case with this building, it's not really greatly altering or affecting the overall appearance of the building. We feel its composition is correct as shown at grade.
Yeah, okay, well, good. I'm glad, personally, I'm glad you're doing that because I feel, although it's not in our probably total purview, is that on Main Street or some other location, getting the windows up and away from the walking level is important. In this location, I'm in agreement with
There are
you.
certain applications where it's very appropriate for that differing in elevations. In this case, we feel like the orientation and the placement on the lot, we really don't need it. We'd like to focus on the handicap accessibility.
Okay, that was my only comment at this point. Thank you.
Peter, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions at this point. I think the improvements that were made to the building make it better, and I really don't have any objections. That's what I'm saying. I was okay with the 2 feet. I saw that on there, and it's like, this building makes sense being lower, so I don't have objection to that.
Okay. Marissa?
The seating area that's out back, is there any sort of intent around what's happening in the center? There, like you have a 10-foot circle. Is there anything happening there?
Not at this time. I think more than anything, it might just be a landscape feature I don't think there's any, plans for a fire pit or anything like that. I think it's more just kind of a landscape garden feature, yeah.
Okay. So I do agree the entrance being more pronounced definitely helps it read a lot better than what we saw previously. Just one question on, so the stone sills are going under those windows in the center, and you mentioned that the roof will actually project out. Do those windows need to get smaller? I guess I'm just wondering if you have a height issue, and we will see those windows smaller once it's worked
Go
out?
back to the actual elevations. So and it's kind of grainy, we do have the sills shown there. There's plenty of room. We adjusted the pitch of the standing seam roof over the main entrance there slightly, but there'll be no conflict with the sill. We'll stay 6 inches below that for flashing purposes, make sure that we get a good detail there to highlight the sill and to make sure we get that 3-foot projection for the pronounced entrance and covered entrance.
Okay, so the center windows aren't changing in size from the
Not changing
rendering?
in size, no.
Perfect, okay, thank you.
That's it? Okay. I'm curious about something that has nothing to do with this hearing, but I'm curious. What are you going to rent these units for?
How much?
Yeah.
It's a good question. Probably not one for the architect. So I don't know if I could answer that. I could venture a guess, but I don't think I'm in much of a position to answer that. I can tell you that they are market rate, and usually market rate is coming in somewhere about $2 a square foot. So depending on the size of the unit, if it was a 1,200 square foot unit, might be upwards of $2,400 a month. And that is my guess. I'm not speaking for the developer at this, but I do know their market rate.
Yeah. Thank you. That's probably a pretty good guess. Sorry?
You in the market?
No. God forbid. No. All right, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
When your attorney gets here, if he has anything to add, we'll have an opportunity to listen to him.
I don't think we should let him talk at all on this one.
You don't think so? That'd be very unusual for him not to say anything.
We'll be okay.
I won't tell him you said that. By the way, let me ask you another question. Was it worthwhile coming here twice?
Yes, I think so. I think the comments, we like to get it all the first time, but I think every one of the I love this process. It's very descriptive of shortcomings of the project. It gives us some designability to react, and I like that design dialogue. So I really like how that's working. I'm looking forward to doing more projects through this process, for sure.
Glad to hear that.
I would like to get them all right the first time, but I understand sometimes that's not possible.
And chances are you will at some.
At one point in time, I might get one through.
You listen to us long enough, you'll probably figure it out.
Start to finish your sentences, right?
Yeah. All right. On number 2, we're still waiting for Mr. Hopkins. Are you guys from Escala too?
No, Nick is. Yeah, Nick is.
You want to go through it? You want to go, we did that once. You want to do it again?
Oh, you did it at the
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, we did that at the preliminary. All right, guys, you can sit down and take a break.
Dale, we set it up so that we would go from presentation to deliberations on each one. Knock it off if you'd like.
Well, I don't think there's any deliberation, is there? That they did what we asked them to do. We're satisfied with the changes they made. Is there anybody who's against this project? Or thinks it should be modified in any way?
As long as they go before the zoning board.
Yeah, and get the appeal.
No, I don't think you need to. I just want to make sure you. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that you don't need to go through the checklist. You believe everything is met based on what you've seen tonight, changes from the last meeting, so you can move right on to a recommendation.
Yeah, we did the checklist at the last meeting. They made the changes we suggested at the last meeting.
Okay.
So as far as I think we're concerned, we're done with this issue. You want us to take a vote on it now? Okay.
I like, one question I did want to, there was a recommendation to add a sidewalk along the southern or the bottom edge of the building to connect.
Front to the back.
Yes. I don't see that added here. That was by the planning board that was, is that something,
Think about that. Yeah.
is that something we should bring up here, or is that something we should leave to the planning board? So
No,
is there a recommendation?
well, it's really a planning board issue.
Okay.
The
Then-
sidewalks are generally with them.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Roll call, please.
Does someone want to make a motion? Are you making a motion, Dale?
Motion to approve
Is there a second?
with conditions.
With conditions, I'll second it.
The condition is the variance? You said approve with condition. Is the condition the variance, applying for the variance?
Variance in the sidewalk.
And the sidewalk connection. Those are your your two conditions. Okay. All right. So we have a first and we have a second.
You don't need to make a condition for the variance. That's a zoning issue that they have to work out anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a condition. The sidewalk doesn't have to be a condition either. Because that's up to the planning board.
Well, we should,
We're recommending
we're
it.
recommending
You're
it,
right,
though, that they do that.
Yeah.
They don't have to accept it as a
Well, that should be in the write-up we get from the planning board. That will be in there.
The-
Because we have our own section.
The side, oh, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, right.
The basic thing, Dan, that I'm just trying to see is that there are things that are in this report that I think are important, that they happen. So we recommend, at least, that they proceed with the zoning variance. It's up to the planning board to make the decision. Okay.
We don't
Yeah.
You could make a finding that you're supportive of a variance for the first floor, ground floor elevation on the roadside. You can make a finding that you believe there should be a sidewalk linking Wrench Road to the open space and parking at the rear along the drive. Those would be findings, and then the planning board will get those.
Yeah, okay, well, I think that's, at least that's my intent of what I want to see happen.
All right, roll call. Duncan Black,
Aye.
Marissa Colucci,
Here.
Tracy Konheiser-Rui,
Aye.
Dale Giuliani,
Yes.
Pete Talty. Oh, no, it's for the vote for the findings, approved with those two findings. Okay.
Okay, second item on the agenda is design review for site plan SP 2023-15, proposed coffee shop property located at 5105 Sheridan Drive. Mr. Hopkins, it's all yours.
Yes, Chairman, I actually just left the City of Buffalo Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. The ISCLO team was with me. They're on their way, so if we could skip this one and come back in a few minutes when they get to it and go to the next one, that would be appreciated.
Okay. I just got to find it.
They're on the 33, so they'll be...
That could still take them forever. All right. So we're skipping number 2 temporarily. We're going to number 3, which is preliminary design for site plan SP 2014-10B, proposed apartment building. Mr. Hopkins,
Yes, so good evening, members of the committee. Sean Hopkins on behalf of the applicant, 1097 Group LLC, which is actually owned by Ellicott Development. Also with me is Dave Sutton, the project architect, and Patrick Sheedy, the project engineer. Pat's handing out to you a color version of the concept plan plugged into an aerial in response to one of the DAB comments, and then just some sample photos of buildings that are in the existing vicinity, including, of course, the former redeveloped school out along the Egger Road frontage. It is important to note that this is a preliminary review, so obviously we'll be back in front of you in the future with the Design Advisory Board application as well. Basically, what we're proposing to do is take the back end of this site and actually do an infill redevelopment. There's actually a project pending before the town board. Here's a copy of the concept plan. It is important to note that this particular project has been extremely well vetted before coming in front of you this evening. The planning department actually retained the services of Code Studios, one of their planning consultants, and we completely redesigned the project, and we'll show you what we mean by that. Originally, what we call this would be more traditional multifamily buildings. We've now replaced that with what I would say more townhouse style buildings, trying to make sure it's compatible with the environment. One of the key features of this particular project site, of course, is the park, right directly to the north on Crosby Boulevard. It is important to note, in connection with the former redevelopment of the Canneletian School approximately a decade ago, which a couple of you reviewed as members of different committees, that we did donate some land to the parkland. It's that triangular piece that you can see there. That was done at no charge at the request of the then town board. That existing driveway, where you can see dark gray, is there today. It's subject to an easement. It leads to the group home, which is located directly behind us. And one of the key features of the redesigned format pursuant to the site plan is you can see that one building has been turned and now oriented more towards the park. And you can also see we've shown very extensive landscaping that will be installed in connection with what we call phase 2 of this project. Next slide. So these are the townhome elevations. Dave, I don't know if you want to give a little overview, or actually we'll do that when we get to the color versions. But as you can see, these do not look like what I would say more traditional multifamily buildings, aka similar to the previous presentation of 3945 Wrench Road. We went back to the drawing board and completely started over, both in terms of the layout of the project, as well as, more importantly, in this context, the elevations. Next slide. These are the color renderings. Dave, I don't know if you want to give a little overview of the thought process. And Dave does have some sample materials if any of you want to see them. So with that being said, Dave, I'll let you address that.
Thank you, Sean. Once again, Dave Sutton from Sutton Architecture. So going back and forth on the design for this, some of the comments were to make it look less like an apartment building and more like a townhouse type concept. The actual layout of the apartment building didn't change much internally, but we spent a lot of time and effort giving different identity to the building itself, breaking it up into what I'll call scalable components, and that is giving it a more townhouse feel. So what we did is we took the two entrances to the lower level units and made them directly from the exterior, and having one center element or door which leads to the internal units and the upper units. And some of the comments that were talked about, I can go over them in order so I don't miss any, but one of them was the differentiation of that main entrance door that's more for a common or public to many of the units rather than individual. As you can see based on the rendering, the individual doors are more residential in nature. The door entering the common area is more glass, more transparency, and more highlighted through use of lantern style lighting, a different type of door configuration, drawing more attention to that center piece. And that was one of the big elements that was recommended or talked about. Some other items that were talked about is obviously compatibility of the neighborhood, which I've talked about extensively. We chose to take a deviation from a standard multifamily building and give it this townhouse kind of look. Some of the window openings, you were talking about material and trim. that we were talking about for the windows, and you can see that we have in various locations used a wider trim to highlight and frame the windows to give them more of an architectural presence. And there's also some elements of the white band that goes through several portions of the building to break down the verticality of the building. So we're breaking it down not only vertically but horizontally, and those were some of the comments that were kind of talked about in some of the reports that were generated. So we feel as though the revisions that we've done have come a long way in terms of creating a unique building style that is very appropriate to its surroundings and to the specific site here at hand. So if you have any questions, once I do, again, I do have siding samples here. They're pretty much reflective of the color scheme. I think there was a question at one point in time. The center section is a different color from the end sections, and the shadow was confusing that a little bit. So we are doing a two color scheme for the siding, a red brick, traditional brick for the brick portion, and then the stone is going to be more of a gray stone, very much represented in the renderings. So if you had any questions, I'd gladly address them regarding the architectural.
Would you guys like to see the material up for close and personal?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, could you give us samples?
The other thing I want to mention in terms of the elevations, and this was more coincidence than anything else, when we were meeting with the planning department, specifically Daniel Latowski in July, and Code Studios was involved, the national consultant.
Just a regular brick.
The project that they asked us to take a closer look at in terms of how we would mimic this is the project that Dave designed over in the village. Dave, what is the name of the Natali project?
Asher Crossing.
Asher Crossing. So we were actually given an image of that, and just by coincidence, it was the same architect involved. So that was the image that we were told to use.
All right. You guys okay with the samples? Yeah.
Vinyl siding is the same as the sample I showed prior to the color scheme being represented on the rendering.
Mr. Black, any questions?
One of the other comments that was in the most recent letter, and we did respond to it, dealt with, and it's a standard comment based on the design guidelines, is, providing a publicly accessible amenity space here. We don't particularly on this site have a lot of room for that, but that park is right there. The town has made a pretty big investment in that park. We had some equipment that was previously on a playground on the site relocated there. So given the proximity, the key publicly accessible green space amenity with improvements is the park. I think it would be actually more redundant than anything else to provide a separate one on this particular site. I mean, this is truly contiguous. And you can see we will have pedestrian connectivity. There were a couple of additional comments dealing with some driveway crossings and some additional striping. We've acknowledged that we'll deal with that, and obviously this project will also require site plan approval as well as coming back in front of you. And again, we do actually appreciate this opportunity to give it a preliminary review first, get your comments, and come back hopefully at next month's meeting. So again, we welcome your comments, and that way we make sure we address anything you may have.
Duncan, any questions?
Ann Dafchik, I have two questions, things that did not occur to me until seeing the rendering up here. I don't know if I was able to fully appreciate it prior to tonight. Two questions are, the brick that's proposed, is it in any way complementary to the existing nearby school, the former Catalytion Center, or was that considered? And then my second question is, I didn't notice until tonight that the cultured stone that's proposed on the front side, kind of as a water table, it just stops at the corner. It doesn't wrap the corner. So I didn't notice that until tonight, and I don't know if that's the intent or if there's a different stopping point that might be considered. So,
Yeah. So the brick is at the corner where the water table is. We have chose to use a trim detail to terminate that stone. We feel it to be best. Sometimes when you turn that stone, you get a good return on the corner, but then you have kind of an awkward abruption or stop of the stone. So our preference is to show this where it actually terminates at a trim piece, and it's stone water table on the front and then transitions to siding on the side, using that trim piece as the transition. And that's the design intent. If there's a concern about it, we can hit a return on it, but we feel this is a better detail.
The east side of the north building would be closest to the school and most visible from the road, I believe. That would be probably benefited the most from having more stone on the side. Or as Ann said before, a brick treatment that better matched the school
So the east side elevation,
of the
are
north
you?
building.
Can you go back to the site plan just so Dave can, I know where.
Yep, where it says lawn there.
I don't have a
Right,
pointer.
where it says lawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, if your suggestion is to continue that water table around that side because of its exposure, I might agree with that recommendation, and I will look forward to presenting that to Ellicott and convincing them that that is a good idea. So we'll see if we can get that on the next level of drawings that come to you. Once again, the water table would continue on the one building facing the school and continue right across that whole thing.
I think the other concern is just the durability of materials at that level with, you know, if it's a sidewalk, if there's plowing activities, or if those grass area, there's going to be lawnmowers.
Correct.
So I think part of that comment
Yeah.
could
If it-
extend to durability and just having a harder surface at that level.
I agree with you 100% in the high traffic areas and the sidewalks. In this case, we thought the lawn might not need it as much, but you do bring up a good point. The guy with the weed whacker is probably just as deadly as the guy with the snow blower. So we can probably suggest that that's a good idea from a durability and from a longevity of material quality. Plus, it looks a little better. So we'll suggest that we'll run that water table around the corner on that building.
I personally would like to see a little bit more brick on them, kind of to Ann's point, to speak a little bit more to the school that's in front. Even if it would,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
So are you suggesting maybe to forego the stone and maybe put brick, more presence of brick in the two locations as opposed to a variety of three materials, establishing more of a townhouse quality? We're doing it to create some individuality amongst the massing. And if, thank you. And if you feel it would be better because of the size and scale of the building and connectability to the adjacent building, we could probably substitute that stone out for brick. It changes the direction of the design because now the building will tend to read more as one as opposed to individual. But it's a different direction, doesn't mean it's better or worse, and I'm thinking we would probably be okay to make that change if it's the recommendation of the board.
Or at least look at it.
Truthfully, I'm not sure how would be best to do that. I just think having just that one element being brick,
brick.
that almost feels like the afterthought to me, and because the gray like siding with the stone feels very like
Okay.
sort of
So-
harmonious, and then there's brick.
Of course. So we are going to be appearing in front of you, I think, to do a follow-up.
Yep.
If I could do a little investigation on that, with the understanding that you're looking for more brick, more predominant, but not necessarily at the expense of the overall division of
Yeah,
the
'cause
townhouse
I
feel.
do think you guys are successful in how you're doing that, so it does feel like
Right.
townhouse. I
I just don't
think
want
that
to
that's
lose that.
successful.
So if
Yeah.
we can go back at it, add more brick and keep it,
Yeah.
I think it'll be successful.
I would appreciate that if that could just hold a little bit.
And I do agree that the townhouse style is successful. I think what's kind of throwing me a bit is the individuality that you talk about, that when I walk up to say that stone portion, I expect that to be my house, top
Right.
and bottom. And the floor plan doesn't match the elevations in
True.
this instance, so
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but it is throwing me a bit in terms of
Right.
just the sense of being there and the sense of living there. Like, what is my unit, right? As opposed to, I'm sort of mixed with my neighbor below.
Yeah. We have done projects like this in the past, one on Colvin and Tacoma in the city, where it does exactly that. We try to identify it as townhouses, and it kind of transitions to something different in the inside. The apartment style we're looking for is not the townhouse apartment style, because it caters to a different clientele, different cost, a different rate. So we're admittingly not there. But I think if you look at the rendering, it does have a nice pleasant feel of that townhouse from the exterior, which is probably the primary focus here. And I would hate to go away from that just because we're playing with the massing and maybe a little bit of fooling. I think it's got some success to it, and I would like to keep that townhouse feel, even if it is different than what's going on inside.
I don't disagree. Again, there's some entrances that are more successful than others, right? So anyone
Correct.
living on the upper floor, they don't really have their entrance, right? They don't
Correct.
have their identity of what a traditional townhome would be, right? So,
Correct.
And
And
I'm
it-
not sure how you would change this to resolve
Well,
that.
the only way to do it would be to change the housing style or type
Exactly.
and make it traditional townhouse. And reminding how we started, this was an apartment building which we turned into a little bit of a townhouse feel. So I don't think we're in a position to redefine the housing offering for economic and programming reasons. So I would be challenged to scrap this project and turn it into townhouse apartments.
Agreed, and I don't
But
necessarily think
I will
that's
take
the
your
way it
comments
should go, but
back
maybe-
with me.
But maybe it's just a matter of differing the colors top to bottom in each section, so it doesn't, so it does read a little bit more individual, right?
Yeah, my concern with that is once we start introducing, we're creating the vertical, and if we start doing the horizontal too, I'm afraid it's going to get really chopped up.
Good.
And we're going to lose the identity of kind of what we created here. So I will look into it a little bit. I'm just concerned that normally if you give me feedback, I'm like, oh, I know exactly what you want. I'll go back to it. I'm just not there. But I will promise you we'll look into that and see if there's some different effort we can put into it.
Okay, thank you.
Peter, you have any comments?
Yeah. Kind of elaborating on the brick and the stone. Symmetry. When you do something symmetrical, you're kind of obligated to it, or if you decide not to, you're intentionally avoiding it. And as I look across here, I see the white band going across the vinyl, going across the stone, going across the vinyl, and then it doesn't go across the brick, and it does continue onto the white. So I've got 4 out of 5, 80%. And I'm going back and forth on on how I would feel about going one of two ways. One is you could introduce like a double soldier course going across the brick to bring that line back in, or it could be a concrete band across there, or you omit it on the stone, and so you maintain a symmetry there. That's something that I'm kind of like trying to figure, how would I feel better about that?
What I can tell you is we did put the white band across the brick, and it was not successful.
Okay.
What I might suggest is eliminating the band on the stone, and that would give that stone piece a real strong identity,
Yeah.
maybe deviating more from what we just talked about, but it didn't work on the brick, so my recommendation would be to take it off of the stone.
Yeah.
And we could introduce the soldier course of the brick to give a hint of that horizontality or that break between floors. And I think that would be successful and true to the material.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then looking at the overhangs, the canopies there, there's a lot of different ways to do a canopy, and I'm not sure that's the best way to do it here, and I'm not sure that all three need to be the same. The one over the residences, the ones over the main entrance. They could be differentiated. I don't necessarily feel strongly that it should be one thing or another, but I think that the rest of the building is better than those canopies are.
The canopy was one thing I wanted to comment on. I wonder if you follow sort of the roof line of the dormers that you have on the roof. Like it
An
feels,
inverted gable.
Yeah, it feels off having that sort of like shed roof style over the doors. And for me, even like the metal, it looks like it's a metal roof, a standing seam, like even that doesn't seem to fit with the neighborhood style for me personally.
What if I was to take a gable roof at the two side individual units? That would differentiate it from the middle and maybe leave the shed over just the main entrance with the glass entrance. Gives a little bit of a different identity. I'll try to put that together, and I think that you're right, it might have some success in differentiating the three awnings or overhangs and introducing a style that's more appropriate, tying into the dormers. And I think if we do that, that maybe we would come up with a better overall. And then introducing either the soldier course and or eliminating the band on the stone so that there isn't this confusion of whether it wants to be symmetrical or not, you know? So let's either make it symmetrical or not. So I think we can run with that a little bit too.
Well, one other very small thing. If we look at the, can we go to the elevations for a second? Was it intentional that the east and west elevations don't have the full divided lights on the bottom? You have
I'm
6
sorry.
over 6 across the rest of the building on the sides. It's 6
Oh.
on top over, and I was wondering if that was just simply didn't get updated.
Yeah, you know what, that probably is a carryover. We were probably undecided on which. To me, I'm less mullions, less busy, so I just do the top. And I will take a look at that and see what Ellicott says. But I think when we started redefining the front, it might have went to a more traditional grid work. If you have a preference one over the other, okay, but you just want them the same. And I agree with that too, by the way, so.
Duncan, anything else?
No, not really. I just think again, it's not part of our overview probably, but the road that goes in and to the group home, it looked to me that they use a lot of that road for parking. In reality, for the group home itself, and is that going to become a problem for your tenants?
We'll have to, Mr. Black, I do actually go by that site, but I don't go back that far often, so let us take a look, I'm not sure. I know the easement doesn't say parking, it says access.
Yeah,
So maybe
because
that might just become an enforcement issue, given, right now, there's probably not a problem, but once we put these units in, obviously we need that to stay
because
clear.
if you look at this plan, there's a little cutout at the end of the driveway that comes down. They have, usually, a lot of time will have a van of some sort parked in there.
Okay, we'll take a look at that.
That's a planning board issue too, though.
Yeah, but it's just something
No, it's
that,
better for us to look at it now, so we will.
it's, heads up.
I also want to note in terms of the comment that was made about compatibility with the school, the planning department, as they always do, provided this to SHPO, because that is, and SHPO came back and didn't have any objections, they just wanted to be made aware of the construction plan, so I think we're okay there.
Anybody else?
You mentioned that you're looking at doing striping to connect like the building sidewalk to the park sidewalk, right?
Right, yep.
Okay. All right. I don't have anything else.
Just one other question on the elevation. Do you envision those dormers to be functional? Will we see light in those windows, the 5? Or are those?
The windows in the attic space, they're purely there for decoration.
Okay,
They're not going to be transferring any lights into the unit at all.
okay.
Anything else? Gary, there was a lot of recommendations made. Do you have all of them?
We are keeping track, but also, after the slides, if you want to get to deliberations, we do have the intent statements in the checklist. As a preliminary review, we're not going to go through the full checklist, but we have the, just the intent statements, and the applicants have provided an answer to how they will meet the general intent of each of the topics. So we can go through those or just address any of those that you think you haven't talked about already.
That was a question?
Yes, it's up.
I don't know. What do you think? You have a better handle on it than I do, I think.
My reaction, Gary, is that we haven't done these point by point,
Which,
but I think we've covered the issues that we have with talking about some of the aesthetic issues, about the canopy roofs at the entrances, and the different items, and as long as those are identified,
you all received the full application that has all of the intent statements and their answers, and you received our comments, and now they're giving you responses to our comments. If that's enough for preliminary, then if you have anything else to offer, now's the time to do it, or we will summarize it.
I think we're done.
I think, yeah.
I think you can summarize.
In this particular project, what we would ask for is, again, because we have to come back, we'll be ready to come back in January or at your next meeting, so we can put it on the next agenda. Obviously, the planning department, as they always do, will give us a thorough letter, and we'll proceed with the next submission.
Okay.
Couple of things. One is, where was the bicycle? Is there going to be bicycle?
Yeah, do you want to go back to the site plan? Pat, do you want to give your thoughts on bike racks? There's a pointer there, too.
Yeah, so bike racks will be off of, obviously, the pedestrian accesses. We'll probably locate them near the central doors of the buildings. I don't think we have them defined on the plans yet, but we will add those in there.
Okay. There's also a request for a pedestrian connection to the park, and is there a grade difference that makes that impossible to do?
No, I think we can do that. As you can see, we're showing this.
Okay.
And I think it was just making sure we have a safe crossing. And in the letter we submitted, responding to the comment letter of Dan Howard issued on behalf of you, we said, we acknowledge, yep, we'll update the plan to show that. Right, and there is a staircase there.
Okay.
Oh, yes, there is a substantial grade change.
Okay.
But we can provide a pedestrian crossing, right? Yep. So that'll be reflected on the updated plan as well.
Okay, we ready to vote?
You don't need to vote for preliminary review. We have 2 preliminaries today and 2 design reviews.
And two, right, yeah. Okay. I guess we're done, guys.
Thank you.
Gave you a lot of suggestions.
Yeah, thank you very much for the input.
You're welcome. Mr. Hopkins, are we ready to go with the coffee house?
Yes, we are, and Nick Dope from ISCLO is here.
Very steep site.
Okay, we're,
And I also want to note Dave Sutton's also involved with this one as well. So.
yeah, he is too, right. We're looking at the design review for site plan SP 2023-15, proposed coffee shop, property located at 5105 Sheridan Drive.
Good evening. Nicholas Stolp from ISCLO Development. Again, Sean, Dave, Pat's actually on the project, and then David Chiazza, who's a project partner, will be joining us shortly. I appreciate you guys adjusting the agenda. We're heading from the City of Buffalo Zoning Board meeting. Traffic was a little bad, so appreciate. So today we're talking about National Coffee Retailer at 5105 Sheridan Drive. We own 4 contiguous parcels, as outlined here. So this is actually 5117 Sheridan, which is currently a Mighty Taco. The proposed National Coffee Retailer will be located here, which is 5105. And then we also own both of these houses on Mill Street. Next slide, please. So this is the landscape plan. We'll get to some additional things as we move along in the presentation. But as you can see, we have vegetation screening the parking lot along Sheridan and Mill. We have landscape screening along the patio area and then elsewhere along the site. This plan was prepared by Bob Walters, and we did include in the letter that you received here, there was a comment about low water plants, and so we do have some of that included in here. I did want to note that the majority of this site was paved previously, so there's only a really minimal amount of new impervious area. Next slide. I'm actually going to skip this one now because I have the elevations later on, and skip this one as well, please. All right. We can actually skip this. We talked about that. 5105 Sheridan Drive, that's the project site that we're talking about. It's currently a former gas station and Valvoline oil change. Again, kind of an eyesore in the town right now. So we hope that this project replaces that. And then, as I said, 5117 was a former Burger King. That was kind of the first phase of this project. And so we've converted that into the Mighty Taco that it is today. Next slide. Again, this is just kind of highlighting the Mighty Taco project. This is the National Coffee Retailer. We've reconfigured some of the property lines just to work with the new drive-through. So as you'll see in the later site plan, we have stacking for about 16 cars. And then the two residential houses that we rent out. Right now, the plan is not to touch those houses. We're going to continue to rent those. Next slide. Go to the next slide. Yep, that's okay. So this is just context. Again, this is the project site here. Just wanted to show it between Mill Street and Evans Street. As you can see, just from an aerial perspective, it fits within the street. Go to the next slide, please. So one of the comments that we received was for kind of showing building context. This section between Mill and Evans, again, is kind of a mix of buildings, single-story, flat roof, two-story. It's got some pitched roofs. It's kind of all over the place a little bit. And so, again, what we try to do is, you know, it's a national coffee retailer. It's a chain. You guys can probably figure out from the rendering who it might be. And so we're relating to their prototype, but also, again, as a single-story retail building, I think it fits well within the town. Next slide. So this one is actually flipped, only so I could orient it with the Google kind of street view images. Again, I know these are kind of hard to see at the small scale, but again, just kind of an eclectic mix of buildings in this area.
And really nothing that I think we particularly want to mimic. I mean, it's all what I would say older, outdated commercial buildings. Includes a used car lot, collision shop, what I would call a dated key bank building, a convenience store. So I think we want to set that to the side in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. So I'll walk you through the site plan. So Sheridan Drive presently has 3 driveways. We've combined that into one. So the main in and out is here. Everything with the Mighty Taco remains the same. What we did is try to develop a drive-through lane that's just for the Mighty Taco, and then another one for the National Coffee Retailer. This would be the way back here, and then you'd enter the drive-through queuing here. Again, stacking for about 16 cars. Parking in front. I want to point out this is the outdoor patio, which is covered and illuminated. There was another comment that we received to ask about landscaping in front of that, which we do have. We also have a fence that's included in there. It helps define the space a little bit. Again, that's a requirement of the retailer. As part of this project, again, these 2 parcels were originally separate, so now it's a combined development. Again, you can see the future houses, or the houses kind of just being held as a future redevelopment area. Again, at this point, we have no plans of doing that. We do have a bike rack that's located right here. In the revised submission that you have, we did provide a detail of that, which shows, I guess, full-size bicycles and ensures that Those bikes are located on paved surface, concrete, so they won't be on lawn area. And then the other comment that we received was screening along here. So we ended up adding a fence right at this point here to kind of help, again, redefine the commercial space from the residential. There are currently fences that run along here, and then that'll tie into the building. The building will actually act as a fence for this residential unit, but they will be completely separated from the commercial space. Next slide, please. So again, just kind of a before and after to show you what we started with the Burger King and what we ended with, again, with Mighty Taco. Next slide. And so again, just to reiterate, this is what the existing building looks like, and then just a rendering of the proposed National Coffee Retailer. And then this just shows, again, kind of the two of them together. Next slide. So floor plan wise, again, part of this phase is just the building shell. After this, the tenant will come in and do their fit out. It'll be a completely separate project. Main entrance though, right here, again, this is the exit to go onto the patio space. The covered area is all the way in the front. And then there's also a little canopy over the drive-through. Again, just to kind of shed cars. And this is just employee access in the back of the space. We did address, there was one comment about fenestration and window patterning. So we did address that. Yeah, you can go to the next one, that's fine. With these windows here, and then it was this corner here. So what we did is we ended up making these lights and these lights the same, and then just respaced those. We created a little bit better rhythm. Materials here. Do you want me to bring them up or just hold them?
Well, we have a light out, so we're not. We should put a light out.
So we should say something now.
So materials, a lot of brick, and then we have a wood look metal siding with a vertical pattern. The mortar color for the brick will match. It's a stacked bond on the bottom and then a rotated stacked bond on the top. Again, the wood look siding is up here, and then the brick is pretty much everywhere else. We did have the retailer actually sent us a note at the end of the day yesterday as they're reviewing these plans as well, and they've made a modification to this area here, which we didn't get a chance to update the rendering. It's still going to be wood look siding, but they want it in a color to match the brick. So we'll show you that in the rendering. Next slide. So again, kind of the colored renderings, you can see where the brick is. They have these vertical lights on the side of the building, which are depicted here. There will be lights underneath the canopy, again, just to try to illuminate that. And then this is the siding here that I was referring to that they want to change to, again, kind of more closely resemble the brick color. I think it's to make kind of the front corner of this band pop a little bit more. Again, this is a prototype building for the National Coffee Retailer. Again, as a company, Iskolo Development, we strive to do quality buildings around town. And so we've had a little bit of input with them to try to, again, get something that we think works well, relates to other single-story retail buildings, but also kind of maintains some of their standards as well. And with that, I did not. Sure. So rooftop mechanical units. So again, the height of the building is, I believe it's 22 feet. The roof is about 5 feet lower than that, so the rooftop mechanical units will be screened completely from view.
Okay. We have questions, guys? Mr. Black, do you have any questions?
What? I guess an awful lot of my questions have been answered by this presentation. It's much better than what we received before. I am concerned about the colors of the building, but I know you're under the gun from the owner of the franchise that you're going to be working with. And I'd like to just make a comment, which you guys don't need to respond to, because the last stuff you submitted were really good in helping me understand the project. But I talked to Mr. Palumbo earlier, is that I had an awful time with the original material to determine there was nothing telling me which site was which number. And, you know, even you start reading the write-up and it says, you know, 5105 or whatever the numbers were. It just didn't mean anything to me because I couldn't really understand the plan. But the new one with your color and the one that the town puts out, if they put the number in, it would really, for me, help.
Sure.
But as I say, I think an awful lot that you've done in presenting here improves the project greatly from what it was when it first appeared before us.
Thank you.
We'll note, Duncan, that you're looking for addresses on the maps that go in the book
Yeah, if
that we generate.
Gary, yeah, if you look at the stuff that they gave us this time, you don't need it to be necessarily as much detail as their aerial did, but if it just showed the numbers there, which is which site, it would have helped.
I think it's just providing a site.
I have an understanding for what you're looking for.
We didn't define it, yeah.
Peter, any questions?
I actually don't have any questions. No.
Larissa? Tracy?
Just one maybe comment / question. If you can go to the site plan. Just wondering, because it is a coffee house, and I'm assuming you'll get a lot of pedestrian traffic right from Mill Street, whether it's the school or housing. As someone walks down Mill, there's not necessarily a sidewalk that brings you into the actual coffee house, right? You have to cross 2 driveways to get to a sidewalk. So just maybe something to consider as you're walking Mill up to it, if there's a sidewalk or a safe place to get to the building from that side of the driveway.
From right here, you're
Yeah.
referring to?
Right. I just see people walking down the road there because there's no safe path for them to get up to the building if you're coming from that direction, which,
Okay.
again, it's a coffee house, so I would want to walk there if I lived in the neighborhood.
Sure. Yeah, one of the things that, so we met with the Traffic Safety Board last week. One of the things that they've tasked us to look into is making this originally we were directed to look at this as being a right-in, right-out, but the Traffic Safety Board directed us to look at it as a kind of a two-way, in and out, full access.
Right.
And so I wonder if that would help, because you're only crossing kind of one, and then you go to the sidewalk and then the crosswalk to get to the front entrance. One of the things is in trying to kind of get this close, eliminating sidewalk as much as we can on that residential property.
And keeping that driveway, remember, that's the southern boundary of that portion of the site, keeping it as far away as from the intersection as we can.
Right,
All
right.
those goals, all those objectives we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Right. But again, just the pedestrian connectivity from the street into the actual building, I think it's not necessarily working the way it's shown now, but
Okay.
with the changes you're talking, you could probably work that in as well.
Okay. Thank you.
This project, of course, will also require site plan approval.
Yeah, obviously. Any other questions? We okay? Do we have to vote on this one?
I just wanted to remind the group that because this is the final application, if there's any other comments that we didn't do a preliminary review, there was a comment made just to clarify the extent of opaque glass. It was not quite clear originally. It was only called out on 1 or 2 select fenestration openings, and I don't know if that would be of concern to this board.
Yes, yeah, and I can address it if you go to the elevation. So there is opaque glass only on 2 openings. It's this one here and this one here above the doors. The retailer has like an air curtain that they put in above each door, and so that's why those are opaque. Everything else is transparent.
Anything
To
else?
to answer your question, Dell, this is a full design review, so we've provided you the application with the checklist. We did not do a preliminary review. The board did not do a preliminary review for this project, so if you want to look at, see if there's anything in the checklist that you want to add, now's the time, because once you make recommendations, your findings, the recommendation will go to the planning board and the DAB will be done.
Checklist. Okay, everybody find the checklist yet?
Too much paper.
I just finally found it. All right, I'm gonna start on page 5 of 22. Pedestrian access and connectivity. Establish a continuous internal sidewalk system throughout the site. Walkway system, rather, throughout the site.
I think,
What they've done?
I think that plays into my comment of, that walkway as you're entering from the south side.
Provide a physical pedestrian connection between the site and nearby public space.
Can I just come back to comment 1? So that's just suggesting that we look at it, not mandating that we do it, right?
We can't mandate anything.
I
It's
know.
up to the planning board to mandate.
Right, I do understand that, but just, I want to make clear, we're going to take a look, and again, if that becomes a full access driveway, per the suggestion of Traffic Safety Board, I think it dramatically improves what we show here.
Okay,
I think it does need to, I mean, I don't know, were you?
Yeah.
it is gonna be a recommendation, yeah. It'll be a
Tracy, can I summarize your recommendation is that you want to see an improvement to the sidewalk access from Mill Street, not along Mill Street, but getting in.
Right from.
Correct, from accessing as you're walking north on Mill Street.
Right.
The next item, provide public pedestrian access through the block. It's not applicable. Page 6, locate and program an amenity space to receive regular use. There's outdoor patio space on this all the way around. We okay with that?
Just,
Okay.
just in the one side, isn't it?
Well, it actually goes into the front too.
That's just the entrance sidewalk. The patio's on the one side.
Yeah, the patio is on the side,
Yep.
but you have
On the west side.
the covered entrance to the front.
That's correct. Yes, we do.
The outdoor patio, place amenity space so that it is connected to the public realm. The outdoor patio space is easily acceptable to the patrons of the business. Design should not appear to privatize the space. Patio being intended for use by patrons of the coffee retailer to be located at 5105 Sheridan Drive. I think we're okay with that. Okay, page 7, provide connections to existing or planned bike paths. There's no really existing bike paths over in that area, so that really doesn't apply. Incorporate bicycle amenities into site designs. Do you have any intention of putting bicycle racks in there?
Yes, yep, it's located right here. And then this is a detail. There'll be 3 racks on a pad.
And that's the most recently updated plan.
Yeah, it's,
Okay. Encourage the inclusion of public art in the project. I don't think it's applicable in this particular instance.
Or at least not included.
Pardon me?
It's not included.
Right. On page 8, preserve existing viability, healthy and attractive trees. I don't think there's anything over there that you could say.
There's nothing on the site.
Right, it's kind of barren. incorporate into the project stormwater management system through the use of low-impact development and other green infrastructure approach. Your answer is due to the small size of the project and minimal amount of new impervious surface, it is not feasible to install in green infrastructure as part of the project. Nothing?
Well, we'll be making stormwater improvements, but not what the DEC would call specifically green infrastructure. You know, there's no drainage system on that site today.
Right, there's nothing there. Use a coordinated landscape plan and materials palette to establish a sense of community continuity within the project.
They're doing that.
Right. Choose appropriate tree and plant species, nuts, again.
And again, that landscape plan will be reviewed. The town has a landscape architect, and
Yeah.
we'll have to demonstrate compliance.
Okay, page 9. Integrate low-level development features throughout the site to minimize impact to the municipal stormwater system and area watersheds. Use landscaping to reduce heating and cooling needs. Include materials and natural features that conserve and promote.
Excuse me, going back to the landscaping, there was this suggestion on the south and west, putting larger trees in to help keep the building cool.
Well, that'll come up in the landscape plan before the planning board.
Okay.
Include materials and natural features that conserve and promote. I don't think there's anything applicable there either. On page 10, reuse site or construction materials. This is not really an opportunity to do that. You're
We
going
don't
to
want
demolish.
to use that
We'd prefer not to.
Yeah, you're going to demolish. I was just going to say, if you want to capture that building, that would be a waste on your part.
Yes.
That's pretty bad shape. Take into consideration the project's building and the site elements that are located near the residential transition. As you state, the parcel is an upgrade in use from the parcel's previous automotive service. The residential abutting it are the homes located on Mill Street that are owned by the applicant and will remain.
Are you guys granting yourselves for the driveway on Mill, as it's shown?
Yes.
There will be,
We
yeah.
will have
and-
easements,
And
yeah.
ultimately, what we envision is some point in the future, nowhere in the near future, those two homes will come in for a separate redevelopment, separate review process, come back in front of you, but there are absolutely no concrete plans at this time.
Right. The reason I asked, I'm wondering, going back to the sidewalk request, could the sidewalk cross the property also?
We can at least look at it.
That might be rather than moving the driveway, losing a parking spot.
Take a look.
Yeah, putting it up there, yeah.
Use wall and fence.
Make sure we got it.
We couldn't hear your comment.
Oh, I was saying, since they're granting themselves an easement for the driveway entrance encroachment already, Tracy's comment about get access to the site from Mill Street coming from the south, they could put a sidewalk on their own property to get access. And in reality, anybody coming from the school or coming down the street will probably be walking across the grass anyway. They won't cross. So put the sidewalk where people are going to be walking.
Okay. Use wall and fence materials that can be maintained to last as long as the principal building. I would imagine that existing wood fence is probably at some point going to fall over. When it falls over, you replace it, right?
Absolutely.
Use colors that match or complement the principal building or are subdued and blend in with the natural environment. Between the wood tone and it fits in. Design the building to incorporate a base, middle, and cap. That really doesn't apply. Page 12, on larger buildings, that doesn't apply either. So B1, arrange elements on the facade, the windows, the doors, the canopies to create a generally consistent rhythm and overall visual interest. I think you did that with the design on the building. Page 13. Doors and entryways should be of a style, scale, and coverage appropriate to the overall architectural style of the building. I think you did that. It blends very well together.
Thank you.
The primary interest of the building should be clearly identified. Incorporate accessibility into primary entrances without the need for switchbacks or railing. Are you gonna have any ability to be able to open the doors remotely?
Yes.
So you'll have both
Yes,
manual
there's a
and remote?
requirement for a push paddle.
That's an
Commercial
ADA
buildings-
requirement.
Yeah, right, that's right. Commercial buildings should have a transparent primary entrance. Yep, you've done that. Okay, page 14. Windows should be of scale and proportion of the overall architectural style of the building and in character with the window sizes of the adjacent buildings and sites. Well, there's nothing really adjacent to that except the Mighty Taco, and the Mighty Taco is a totally different design. Locate windows to create visual continuity. You've done that. Window openings should be trimmed with appropriate material, well, obviously. 15, architectural details such as overhangs, cornices, caves, eaves rather, and parapets should complement the architectural style of the building and its surrounding context. I guess the best way to describe that is to say it blends with Mighty Taco next door. So it's kind of all goes together. Any comments on that?
I don't think so, but.
Roof line should be in character with the overall style of the building. That it's a flat roof. Cornices should be used to differentiate. That's not applicable. Building stories, cornices line, that's not applicable either. Varying the building placement, setback from the street on a large building helps break up the black, and that doesn't apply either. Architectural lighting may be used to enhance specific elements of the building. Are you doing anything to highlight that?
Yeah, so there's vertical lights here. And then there's also under canopy lighting. And then at nighttime, again, their signage is really the thing that they want to shine.
Yeah. And you're obviously gonna have lighting on the patio, right?
Yes, yeah, underneath the canopy, there's lighting.
Design the building to provide interest at the street level adjacent to the public realm. I think you've done that. Incorporate landscaping along the ground floor of the building. That really doesn't apply. Page 17. You should seek to reduce water usage and reuse water with the building. And your answer pretty much take care of that. Should seek to reduce energy use and then generate energy on site. So you're going to engineer it obviously to the latest standards that are available.
That's correct.
Use high-quality, durable materials. I think you showed us that, looks like it's fine. Next page, page 18, use responsibility, sourced and long-lasting building materials. Looked okay to us. Any side or rear wall facing a street, residential district, or public area must be consistent with the same finished materials as the primary facade. Well, the building is pretty consistent all the way around. Decorative masonry materials such as split face and texture finished block are discouraged. You didn't use any of that.
No.
Exterior finishes, materials should be consistent with those being retained on the existing structure. Well, there's no existing structure. Exterior installations, finished systems should not be utilized as primary building material, but you're not using any of that anyhow. Open spaces should be ideally located, well, it's really not applied. Matter of fact, this whole next section doesn't apply until we get to the last one, where you said the bicycle racks will be going in. Coordinate building elements such as furnishings, overhangs, lightings, and signs to create an engaging sidewalk space.
Yeah, I think the lights being at pedestrian level, you know, those light bars do that.
Sidewalk elements should be scaled according to the context, including the intensity of activity, building heights, and noise levels. Locate exterior uses and amenities to support and connect to interior activities. Use surface materials that complement the architecture and character of the area. Well, again, you're being consistent with the Mighty Taco next door, so you are doing that. Streetscapes and amenities may be placed in the curb. Well, that's not really, trees and other landscapes, nope. Okay, that's it on the checklist. Anybody have any additional questions? Nope. Okay, we have to vote on this one. Can I have a roll call, please, to vote?
Is there a first?
Motion and second.
I need a motion in a second, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Anybody want to make a motion on this? Marissa makes the motion. Anybody want to second it?
I'll second
Is it a
that.
motion to approve or approve with conditions?
And recommend.
Oh, a motion to recommend. And you second? Yes. All right. Duncan Black.
Aye.
Marissa Calucci. Tracy Konheiser-Rui.
Yes.
Dale Giuliani.
Yes.
Pete Tulty.
Motion passes 5-0. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you guys very much for your time.
And your findings are as you went through the checklist. I wrote it down in the checklist as well.
Did you get all that?
Yes.
Yeah, he did, huh? He writes fast. Hi, David, how you doing?
David, how are you? Good to see you, my friend.
Great.
It's been a while.
Okay, last item on the agenda tonight. Preliminary design review for site plan SP 2023-14, proposed mixed-use building property located at 5226 and 5228 Main Street. You guys must have broke a couple of copy machines. We're ready if you are.
Good evening once again. Sean Hopkins on behalf of the applicant, Ellicott Development Company. Also with me 4 for 4 is Pat Sheedy, the project engineer from Carmina Wood Design, as well as Brian Slevar, the project architect from Carmina Wood Design. This is a site that we probably all know well, 5226 and 5228 Main Street, the site of the former George's Market. It was purchased by Ellicott Development about 5 years ago. And now we're moving forward with a proposed redevelopment project. Just to acclimate everyone, this of course being the Key Bank, medical office or office building, Wendy's, which before COVID I thought was going to close, but now it's the busiest restaurant in Western New York as far as I can tell. The Tops Plaza, which is located here. You have the collision shop, the gas station. You have Ellicott Development's project across the street, the Verizon store, and a wide assortment of commercial uses. It is important to note that this particular site is not located anywhere in the immediate vicinity of a residential neighborhood. You want to go to the next slide? And I do want to note what Pat handed out to you were some sample photographs of buildings in the immediate vicinity, as well as taking the site plan that he's prepared that's also pending before the planning board and plugging it into a color aerial, just to give you a sense of the context. Again, similar to a couple of the other projects, there's no uniform style in this particular area. You have differing building types, built in different eras, different appearances, and different uses. So we're proposing here on this site, which is fairly deep, but not very wide along Main Street, is a mixed-use building. The mixed-use building would consist of 4 floors, 10,000 square feet of retail commercial space on the first floor, and then 30 upper-story apartments. It does also include an outdoor amenity space for the residential tenants, which would be an outdoor patio. Next slide. These are the color renderings. I'm going to actually turn this over to Brian. He'll give you a sense of what we're proposing. Also has some sample materials. I do want to note this project is a preliminary review, so we're soliciting input, and then again, we'll come back next month. So with that being said, Brian.
Thanks. Yeah. No, I don't need one. Brian Sleevar, Camino Wood Design. So this was a very, very tight site, and before we even got into design, we had a lot of meetings with the fire marshal, a lot of meetings with building and planning about code-related exterior walls because they're so close to the property line, our window allowances and openings, and a lot of things that we normally have a lot of latitude on. This project was really down to the decimal point on some of our allowances. So what you see here is sort of the really backed into it from a building code perspective on the configuration of the building. Like Sean said, it's 4 stories. The first story is all commercial, except for on the rear is the only entrance for the residential, with them parking in the back. So everything you're seeing along the bottom, along here, along our parking lot elevation is all commercial. I think maybe there's one more slide that has the elevation on the back. Yeah, there you go. So this is our residential entry that comes into just a very small little vestibule. But again, even I think this over here is obviously all commercial too. Oh, actually, wait, I'm sorry. Here's the residential lobby. This is the Main Street angle. So with that, we just sort of kind of like Sean said, it's such a narrow frontage. We tried to put a lot of our design into that front part that actually faces Main Street. So we have a pretty detailed cornice line. Again, we're working with all of our, developer usual materials now are fiber cement panels. So everything on this project is fiber cement, from the brick to the wood to all the flat surfaces you see, and the groove paneling for the vertical construction. It's nice because it'll go together really nice with it all being one material. You will notice on the windows, I think there was a comment in there about detailing out the windows. We'll do that a little bit more, but because this is the product depth, you don't get that brick depth on this type of product. So the windows are pretty flush with the exterior, so there's not a lot of shadow line on there. But we tried to take sort of a contemporary look at sort of a traditional fit with Mosey across the street and some of the other commercial buildings that are around there. And I think what we can make up for in some of the flatness maybe is we're going to try to light it really well. We're thinking we're going to have a lot of vertical lighting on the bottom and some indirect uplighting on where we kind of are in and out between the windows for the apartments. Yeah.
Brian's going to pass out those sample materials. Want to go to the next slide? I don't know if that's it. Yeah, so that's it for the preliminary review. I do want to note, similar to the previous projects, we did get a fairly detailed comment letter from Dan Howard of the Planning Department reflecting input received from Ann and others. I believe that was dated December 7th. And we have submitted a fairly detailed response letter following those criteria one by one. So if there's questions about that, we can address those as well. And again, asking for preliminary input and then hopefully coming back in connection with a design advisory board request and recommendation during your meeting next month.
As a preliminary, we should go through the intent statements, just to make sure that you're comfortable with the approach they're taking, so that when they come in with the final design review, you'll be able to go through the checklist successfully.
Can I just ask a question? So you said the entrance to the apartments is only from the back, but there is the exit stair at the side. Is that just meant to be an emergency exit?
Yeah, I think with the proximity to the property line, I think we did connect it with the sidewalk, but the intention of that is it's really just emergency exit only.
Another comment that came up when we presented this to the town board and found its way to a condition is originally we were not showing cross connection to the TAPS Plaza. So we are in discussions with Benchmark, the organization that owns that, in terms of having cross access. And as Brian indicated, while we're coming in front of you for the first time, we've actually been working on this project for nearly 2 years. We were asked to get an emergency access easement across the adjacent office building project at 5214 North Forest. We've done that. That's been recorded and a copy's been provided to the planning department. So to ensure that There's more than multiple means of emergency access on this site.
I believe one of the staff comments was that we're trying to improve the access through the site, even though there's not a lot of open space. There's no open space on the surface. What we're also trying to make sure there's good pedestrian access to the commercial area to the northeast. And I think I see now it's not a sidewalk, but some striped out areas. But that was one of our comments that are
Yeah,
outstanding.
I think it's a very tight site, we acknowledge that. I think to me it was more the question of the connectivity. So with having that residential entrance in the back, you're really forcing any residents to just go get in their car and drive somewhere as opposed to going to walk Main Street, right? So it's kind of turning its back on Main Street as opposed to being front and center.
I mean, we have the side, you'll be able to walk out of that entrance and walk along the building to get to Main Street. But again, you know, with all the requirements we had for the fire apparatus road and all that, it just, I mean, I think we literally asked the fire department to go out and we did a mock-up with them to see how much they could turn it to try at some point.
Can they go in that entrance, or is that door locked? Is it exit only?
Can they enter the front, are you asking?
Can they enter the front egress? Can they also walk in that door, or is that door?
Yeah, I mean, we could set it up. I mean, we could definitely look into doing it. There's no reason why we couldn't. Right now, you would walk into that stair tower and just go, you have your normal egress there going up. But yeah, we could look at shortcutting it. I think it's just,
Is there an overhang on that, or no? Is there anything to mark?
right
that
now, there is not an overhang over that part. We'd have to, again, look into the building code because we're so close to it that overhangs that within 10 feet, sometimes we got to get into some complicated math. But we could look at it.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Tracy on that one. I do like the idea of that residential entrance not being hidden and tucked away. Give it some kind of prominence, electrical.
I mean, it really was driven because this is a extremely narrow, double-loaded corridor. I mean, we got 45 feet for the entire building. So really, with everything being kind of flipped sideways, it was, you entered on one end or the other. And the commercial side, I think, needed to be on Main Street.
Yes.
I also think if you live there, I actually live very close by. Even though I get the comment, you're definitely going to take advantage of the walkability amenities. I mean, I think that's the best aspect of this particular site. So while is it a little bit inconvenient to take the sidewalk here? Yeah, probably, but people are going to do that. There's so many places that you can actually get to close nearby.
Right, but I think it's also more about the celebration of the entrance, right? So you, beautiful entrance for the residential, but it's on the back of the building. I think to me, some of that is, you know, this is Main Street, you know, celebrate, you have residential here and you've got something more exciting up above.
So
I
is
know
that
it's-
something, Brian, you think we might be able to accomplish?
Yeah, I
Let's
think,
look at it.
yeah, we can definitely look at the access. The canopy, we might have to look a little harder at, just to see if we're allowed to do it. Because you'll see, we stopped the canopy on the front there, and I think it might have been that might have been why, but we can look at it.
Well, maybe you have to lose a little tenant space, but maybe it can sneak its way out and just come out onto Main Street, right, along the back of the building, if you will.
Yep, we can take a look at
In
it.
the building, but you might lose some tenant space, but
And maybe we can get with Pat and see if we can even pull it out and get that door on the side facing Main Street as opposed to the side lot line too. You know what I mean? To get it a little bit more prominent on Main Street.
The town architect made an interesting comment. It would be interesting to see more of a full cap on the entire upper floor if possible, through the use of materials change or a small setback from the second and third floor planes. Did you get that comment from her?
Yes, and I think our response is that we have such a long, flat building that we were really trying to break it up vertically. And by recognizing the fact that we're on Main Street and doing that more ornate cornice on the Main Street elevation, we really tried to keep it playing up that vertical look with those with the panels and with the wood towers. So that's kind of why we were thinking that that was a little bit more simple.
It is simple.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, ladies, any more comments, questions?
Why fake brick?
I mean, it's a high quality product. I mean, it's not brick. things are expensive these days, and I think that with looking at everything that we're looking to do, and we get to do a lot of things that we can't do with brick, with traditional brick on this building, like having it on the upper section. I mean, that would be hard to, we'd have to bring it to the ground and do a lot more things. So I think considering everything is fiber cement, having the fiber cement brick ties it in with itself. And I think and when you have it next to real brick, you can tell, but when it's by itself, I think it looks real. I mean,
Do you know of any, like, installs in the area?
so if you go, you know where Resurgence is on Ohio Street? So there you have the existing building, and then abutting it is the Nichiha brick panel. And it's, it's not the black, but it's their more traditional red. And you can even zoom on Google Street and check it out, but yeah.
Is that brick, where is the brick exactly as opposed to just the black?
So the brick is right there in that panel. And then I think if you go to the next slide, yeah, along here too. So basically this front corner on Main Street gets the brick. And I think
Not at grade level at all, it's all.
is not at grade level because with the transparency, we tried to break that up with the canopy and give ourselves a little bit of a base.
So the base is the solid black.
Is the, yeah, yep. And we'll look at the panel size. I mean, that one comes in some bigger sheets too, that we can look at, some large format stuff.
I have to ask a question here at this point. This sheet that just passed out to us, I guess, are you trying to point out the different materials or
Just so
what?
you can see what materials we handed out. Unfortunately, the red is the only image they have of the flat panel. So we just wanted you to see quickly with what we handed out,
Well, it's,
what goes where.
frankly, the rendering itself is better at telling what you're doing. This is personal, but,
It's just
I mean,
something we
because
did last time, and
you've got, like on the wood, it's a horizontal, and on this picture, it's a vertical
yeah.
pattern and
Okay.
different
I mean,
colors that,
we can certainly take it away. If the rendering gives you what you need, that's fine with us.
to me, it tells a better story.
Okay.
but that's-
Thank you.
So my question is a very simple one. This 5226 is going to be illuminated?
Yes.
Be nice if all the properties along Main Street were illuminated with a number. They're so hard to find sometimes.
Yeah, I think we've looked at a couple of different situations, but I think this is sort of like one of those internally glowing, so it looks nice, not just like a bright sign, but
something garish.
yeah, it'll be part of our lighting package that I think that we're looking at right now.
Okay, any other questions, guys?
Where that number is installed, is this just a flat, like, what is that termination of the brick and the black panel look like?
Yeah, are you saying, do they just butt up? Yeah. I think, oops, sorry, go ahead.
It's all very flat. I would encourage you to, I understand like the wood pieces pop out, but like even that termination, like could the brick, could that panel pop out and you just have like, even like a couple inches of
Okay.
it or something?
Yeah.
Especially with it, like the mortar lines and stuff don't give you like the dimension that you would have in some of those traditional products. So I would encourage,
Well, you'll
yeah,
when you have the full-size panel, which I wish they would give us a sample of, but the full-size panels, they're true modular brick profile. So the joints, the brick faces, and everything is a true.
so the mortar joint isn't as.
No, I don't know why.
shallow.
I think in those things, yeah. I'll see if for the next meeting we can get a better picture of.
I'll take a trip to Resurgence tomorrow after.
Yeah,
work.
an excuse for you.
Corner from the
Yeah.
office, so,
Yeah, but you'll see, and Resurgence is a great example because it is real brick right next to that Nichiha panel, and the windows are about the only thing that give it away.
Okay. I still would encourage though, like a little bit of depth change.
Sure.
Especially where you have that sort of like flat finish, where you have some of those changes. And like on that building, like I'm just looking at like some of the buildings that are around, like the Mosey and the Bright. I know they were not like good precedents for setting the stage or something. It's a janky a lot going on,
Yeah.
but there's definition in what they're doing on their facade.
Yeah, I think we can get some relief and some distance between there, or if at anything, look at some of the joints and some of the trim pieces, yeah.
Anything else?
I think the one thing that's kind of throwing me a bit is just the overall design of the building. I love how you're breaking it up. I think that base, though, the contrast of the glass and the black is too contrasty.
Yeah,
So I think it's really deflecting from what you're trying to do up above. So I don't know if the glass is depicted accurately here as being
no,
so.
I'm gonna think that it's probably more blue than it's meant to, and we can fix that. Because I would think that typically the residential windows are gonna have a little bit more of a clear glass, so it's gonna look a little more gray. And then we can probably find a way, obviously with any kind of commercial space, we don't want really highly reflective glass, so we can adjust that to make it look a little more realistic and,
Yeah, I think anything you could do to maybe blend,
Yeah.
but maybe, I don't, it's 4 separate tenants though, so you still have some definition of,
Yep.
of, tenant space. And it may be missing that bottom, it feels like it needs a water table or something to break up that
Okay.
expanse to define the base a little bit more. I think that the top, because your wood pieces are sticking up a bit higher, I think the top definition that maybe was Ann's comment isn't as bothering me as much at the top of the building. I think to me it's more the base and grounding the building to have a solid profile at the,
okay.
or language at the bottom of the building.
Yeah, we can look at that between the wood pieces and see if some kind of yeah.
Or maybe it's with mullions or, somehow
Yeah,
to.
something to ground it a little.
Yeah, I think the base needs just a little bit more work in blending that.
Yeah, happy to look at that.
I do have one comment additionally. I'm looking at the windows, and the windows have 3 different languages going on. You have the storefront on the bottom, you have the divided lights, and then where you have the Juliet balcony, it's just a plain pane of glass. Now, I'm looking between the plain pane and the divided lights and thinking either they could be more harmonious or somehow complement each other. And it also occurs to me that, let me ask this question, are those double hung windows, or is that just, are those operable, or is that just a solid pane of glass?
Which, the upper sash?
Are those operable or they're not?
I don't know. Well, we can certainly ask. I don't know that we've had those discussions.
If it's not operable, then you could.
I mean, the lower sash is definitely operable, right?
Well,
It's,
that's-
yeah.
It's double hung. or it
It's
is-
at a minimum, it's
a
single
hung
hung.
window.
Yeah,
Not
right,
just-
correct.
it's not
Yep.
just-
And then it's most likely a slider there too for the Juliets
Okay.
to open that up. So, yeah, but no, at a minimum, the lower
Those
sash.
are all kind of default choices, going with the double hungs, with the divided lights above, clear glass below, and the sliders being just glass.
Yeah.
But I don't think any of that's doing anything. Again, I don't have a suggestion in this point, but those are the default choices. If they were all, maybe the divided lights maybe don't have to be there. Or
Okay,
maybe,
yeah, we can-
or maybe the divided light, I've seen with the sliders, you can have just a single row across the top.
Yeah.
Maybe something to tie them. They seem as if they were default choices, but not harmonizing with each other.
Okay.
And that's about all I have to say about the windows. That's all, that's my only comment, is I'd like to see some kind of harmony between the windows.
Yeah. Easy enough to look at.
Hi, I just want to share one comment in case the board, just to double check that the board received this one comment on guideline 1A, pedestrian access and connectivity. The comment I provided was to consider pedestrian access through to the adjacent Tops markets. I do understand you guys are working with that property owner. The current proposal, the way it's drawn on the site plan right now, would force a pedestrian, especially in wintertime when snow is plowed, to walk through an access driveway if they want to walk over to Tops. The sidewalk at Tops is only about 100 feet away from this building. So I just want to know if there's any response back to that comment regarding pedestrian connectivity.
So we're still in discussions with Benchmark. I mean, we can at least look at that. Can we go to the, oh, we don't have it. I can't picture, I go there all the time.
Is it on this site here?
Yeah, how close the sidewalk connection
if you
is.
go back to the slide you were just on, If you can go back to that slide for just a moment. If you look at the lower right-hand corner where there's those two gray rectangles, the furthest lower right-hand corner, that is the sidewalk for Tops. That is the front sidewalk in front of their building.
So yeah, we'll look at that comment.
Thank you.
I do know, because I go to that Tops, and there's so much extra parking, people tend to walk whatever way they're going. And
That's a big parking lot.
yeah, it's just, there's no one there as far as,
One other comment that, to follow up on our review letter, noted that there's no surface open space, therefore it doesn't appear that there's any access to the public to amenity space or open space. If there's commercial on the ground floor, is the amenity space on the roof just aimed for tenants?
yes, it is. And again, I guess part of my position on that is if you look at a bigger picture, which I get, it's in the design guideline, there's no doubt, but keep in mind, we have a park directly next door on North Forest, the park across the street on Long. I mean, I live in this area, there's no shortage. I use these parks. I mean, you can walk to them, you can bike to them. They are nice amenities that are clear by that all these projects benefit from. So provide some little publicly accessible amenity area on site. I mean, be looked at, but I don't think it really accomplishes anything.
I love rooftop patios. As I was looking through this, I wondered, how are you going to get onto the rooftop?
I'm gonna let Brian actually answer that.
So right now, yeah, you would go through the stair towers to get up there?
Okay.
Yep.
So the stair tower would be taller than we're seeing it on the rendering.
Yes,
And there would be two of them.
yes, because it's so big, we'd have to have two ways off, correct?
And they would extend an additional 8 feet.
I would say, yeah.
Provide the rooftop patio for accessibility?
So as long as we're under 3,000 square feet, we don't have to make it accessible with an elevator. So usually the rules are over 750, two ways off, 3,000 is the breaking point for having to provide accessibility via an elevator.
But I do agree with top patio, there would be.
Oh, they're fantastic.
Yeah, it really would be cool.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to note is, obviously the same developer was involved with the Mosey across the street. And I want to make sure this is clearly distinguishable from that. That was about a decade ago. And if you look at what we're proposing here in terms of materials and appearance and compared to that, and everyone can have their own opinion. I have my own. This is a big step forward. And again, I think that's part of the reason the town has adopted these design guidelines. This building's going to look nice.
All right, anything else, guys? That's it?
So this one we would also ask to be tabled till January. The planning department, again, will get us very thorough comments and we'll make an updated submission.
Okay.
Just to be clear, you're expecting to do the full design review in January?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I hope everyone has an enjoyable holiday season. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
I have one last question, if I may.
Oh, go ahead. Of course, yeah.
Outside of the DEB. What is the plan regarding the barn in question? I know there's been conversation about the one barn and
Relative to what?
as a donation or not getting rid of it.
I don't know if we've received that comment.
Okay, I said outside of the DEB, so we can, yeah.
Do this, Ann, if you get a chance. Can you shoot me an email tomorrow? I'll follow up. Well, I mean, what are some possibilities? And I know it's outside DAB.
Sure. Tom and I have discussed Ellicott possibly making a donation of that structure
Okay.
for town use. Again, I don't know what that may entail, but it sounds like it's the beginning of a conversation, but I understand that there's a timeline, and I want to make sure
Right.
we don't miss any timing.
Okay, yeah. Can you just shoot me an email
Sure.
and then I'll circulate to the team. I was not aware of that conversation.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else?
Not unless you want to,
No.
No.
Done.
you've done enough tonight, huh?
Enough meetings today.
Yeah, right.
Thanks.
Yep. All right, we have two more items on the agenda that we have to deal with. The first one is the Design Advisory Board proposed calendar for 2024. Everybody have an opportunity to look at this? If there's no comments on it, someone like to make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Peter, motion to second.
I'll second.
Tracy? Roll call, please.
Duncan Black,
Aye.
Marissa Calucci, Tracy Konhiser-Rui,
Aye.
Dale Giuliani,
Aye.
Pete Tulty.
All right, the last thing we have to deal with is the minutes from the October 26th meeting. Everybody have an opportunity to review this?
Yes.
If so, I take a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Mr. Black moves, second.
I'll second it.
Peter seconds. Roll call, please.
Duncan Black,
Aye.
Marissa Calucci,
If you read the minutes and you agree with them, you can.
you can abstain or you can vote yes or no, it's up to you. So, okay, so yes. Tracy Konhiser-Rui,
Yes.
Dale Giuliani,
Yes.
Pete Tulty.
Yes.
All right, take a motion to approve, to adjourn the meeting.
I make the motion.
Marissa makes the motion,
I will second.
and Tracy seconds it. All in favor, please by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, thank